One day, we were short of interviewers. I was suddenly asked to be the interviewer. However, we interviewers were perplexed by the sixth candidate. Hello, my name is Andrew Walker from the sales department. Thank you for coming down. When I introduced myself, the woman suddenly burst out laughing and said something I couldn't believe. Wait a minute, are you Andrew? Are you the incompetent, dull worker that my dad was talking about? I was speechless when she made such a harsh comment. I'm Andrew Walker, 43 years old. One day when I came to work as usual, I received this request from the staff of the Human Resources Department. I'm so sorry to do this on such short notice, but I'd like to ask you to be an interviewer for the new employee hiring test. I worked in the sales department, and I wasn't usually involved in interviews. I previously worked in human resources for 10 years. They probably asked me to do it because of that. However, the exam for new hires has a significant impact on individual lives. As far as I can remember, when I was involved in recruiting and interviewing, I would review the resumes of college students that came in for interviews. I used to compile a list of questions I wanted to ask them beforehand. I didn't have time to prepare for the interview as it was unexpected. I was sure the Human Resources Department was aware of that, so what's going on? I asked the staff. Maverick, who was in charge of the department, he's not feeling well. I'm sorry. I know this is too much to ask. That's what he told me. Well, if he's not feeling well, that's understandable. I'm going to look over the resumes now. Can you hand them over? When I said that, the staff from the Human Resources Department looked relieved. He handed me the materials. Maverick was the department head. He was one of the few employees who started at the same time as I did. He was the most motivated person among us, and because of that drive, he was still the head of the department. Well, he had a little bit of an issue. He tended to do things a little bit selfishly, and even though he wasn't aware of it, his staff and his bosses were a little bit concerned about it. Since we entered the company at the same time, I pointed it out to him softly once. However, he took it as an insult. After that, he hated me completely. From then, he looked at me like I was his rival. That was not all. When we were in the same department, he interfered with my work. He tried to spread a rumor that I was having an affair. It seemed like he wanted to get rid of me from this company somehow. Well, when everyone in the office saw this, they assumed Maverick had started something odd again. So, I didn't have any particular trouble working at the office. Concerning Maverick's health, it wasn't uncommon. Of course, if he was really weak, I would be concerned. But I knew very well that it wasn't the case in most of the time. Ever since he was a new employee, I heard him saying that. He frequently avoided difficult tasks by faking illness. Because he was usually so motivated, his supervisor never thought he was ditching, until now. I'm the only one who knows the truth. It's just that people likely saw him as an elderly individual who frequently fell ill. When there was a very important task that only he could handle, he didn't use that excuse. So, I believe that he didn't give much importance to the interviews for the newly hired. However, the interview had a significant impact on individuals' lives. I was shocked by his attitude. With that, I looked at the resumes of the college students who were attending the interview, and among them, I found a resume that caught my attention. Normally, some students worked hard in club activities and worked as the leader of a club. Some had participated in national competitions in club activities. Others had received certificates for their volunteer work. Some of them came to our company as interns. The majority of the students were wonderful kids. In that sense, There were a lot of kids that caught my attention. I found it very exciting to meet them in person. But for this particular student, I meant something different. Emilia Jones. The resume had that name on it. She was probably Maverick's daughter. Ever since she was born, Maverick had been doting on her. He loved her so much. I don't think there was anyone in the company who didn't know that name. Emilia was in college, but his love for her had not changed a bit.
Soon Emilia will be working. If she says she's getting married, I'll miss her so much.
I heard that. He always says such a thing. Having a strong family bond is a wonderful thing. But I couldn't believe he was considering allowing her daughter to work for the same company where he worked. It was incredible. While I was thinking about that, I suddenly realized something. If he wanted to let her get into the company he was working for, why didn't he work as an interviewer? I mean, personal connections shouldn't be the basis. It's basically a no-no. However, I was definitely a smoother way to get a job offer for her. In light of Maverick's personality, I wondered if he didn't know that his daughter was taking the test. That was the conclusion I reached. I wondered if I should tell him about it. But I didn't even have his contact info. Well, I guessed it was fate that I was assigned to be her interviewer. It didn't matter who she was. I was just going to conduct the interview as usual. That's what I decided. I started reading the resumes again. A few hours later, a group of nervous college students came in, and the interviews began in turn. There are many ways to conduct an interview, but at our company, we used individual interviews. The reason was to get to know each person individually. I'd been in the sales department for a while. I was not involved in the interview process. But when I met them, I was moved by their anxieties and expectations of becoming a member of society, as well as their ability to demonstrate their capabilities. It was just fantastic. It made me think I had to do my best too. I guess I love working in human resources department. With that thought in mind, I was going through the interviews, and the sixth person who came in, it was Emilia Jones. She introduced herself clearly. She sat down on the chair under my guidance. I got the impression that she had a lot of confidence in herself. That was my first impression of her. In a sales, I thought it was important not to be afraid of other people, because he had to deal with many people. So I thought she had potential. That's what I thought, but... Hello, my name is Andrew Walker from the sales department. Thank you for coming down. When I said that, Emilia said something unbelievable. Wait a minute, are you Andrew? Are you the incompetent dull worker that my dad was talking about? And she started laughing. There was another young employee from the Human Resources Department sitting next to me. We were both speechless. When Emilia started saying such a rude thing, judging from the way she was talking, I knew it was her. She had to be Maverick's daughter. It was good that I was able to confirm it. But what did she mean when she said that I was an incompetent, dull employee? Well, I could only assume that Maverick referred to me like that at his home. But even if I allowed that to be the case, we were meeting for the first time, and we were in the middle of an employment examination. Was this something you say to an interviewer? Even if it wasn't the case, would you say something like that to someone you were meeting for the first time? I didn't think it was appropriate. While I was wondering what to say back, Emilia herself started to talk. Oh, I haven't told you yet. I'm sorry. My dad, He's working in the human resources department of this company as a department head. His name is Maverick Jones. You know him, don't you? When she asked me, I was finally able to open my mouth. Oh, I know him. We joined the company the same year, I answered. I knew it! My dad told me about you. He said that there was a miserable, dull colleague. Why are you here today? I thought that my dad would do the interview. Could it be that he's busy and you're substituting him? Amelia laughed. Maybe she was thinking that there was no way that she would get rejected. Because her dad worked as the head of the human resources department. We were in the job interview, and she was facing the interviewer. But the fact that she was able to say this much without hesitating was a sign that she had guts. In a sense, maybe she was someone that we couldn't afford to lose. Yes, that's right. Your dad wasn't feeling well. He couldn't make it. I'm interviewing in his place. But a few years ago, I was in the human resources department. It won't affect your interview. Don't worry, I told her, and then, oh, are we actually going to do the interview? But I'll pass anyway, right? Because my dad is the head of the department. I was surprised by her comment. Just how much authority did she think that the head of the human resources department has? Even if it might work to her advantage, I wanted to tell her that after all these terrible comments, there was no way that she was going to get accepted. But I was an adult.
I can't make any promises. The fact that you are a relative of one of our employees might be an incentive to hire, but it's not a reason for the decision itself. Like any other college student, after we interview and get to know your personalities, we would like to consider if you are the kind of person we would like to work with or not. I tried to explain to her politely, so that she could understand.
Why are you so cocky, man? You are not matched for my dad. If you're going to be a pain in the ass, I'll tell my dad when I get home. She started saying absurd stuff. I knew there was nothing I could do. So lastly, then, is it good with you that we did not conduct the interview? If that's the case, we are done here. I told her that. Amelia looked angry. Forget it. I don't need an interview. I'm just going to tell my dad and I'll get accepted. What's more, you're just a dull employee offending your boss's daughter. Do you have any idea what's going to happen to you? I don't know if you are doing this to vent your anger towards my dad, but you are so annoying. With that, she walked out of the room. The Human Resources Department employee sitting next to me said, "What a horrible girl." He was shocked. Of course, I felt the same way. And then, "I asked you to be an interviewer on short notice. I'm sorry something like this happened. I'm truly sorry." He apologized to me. "Oh, come on. You did nothing wrong. Don't worry about it." I'm sure he was worried about me, since Amelia viewed me as an incompetent. Compared to my colleague Maverick, well, she wasn't wrong. Me and Maverick entered the company at the same time. Yet, I was working as a regular employee. Well, on the surface. Yes, Amelia, who was the daughter of the head of Human Resources Department, called me that I was incompetent. And I was a sore loser. She said all kinds of stuff. But that didn't depress me at all. It wasn't that I was pretending to be strong. And it was not that I lacked ambition. The truth was that I was going to be the next general manager. In fact, the current CEO of this company was my dad. But if I went public with it, people would treat me differently, and I wouldn't be able to grow. So that's why I'd been hiding it for decades. The only people in the company who knew about it was my dad, the CEO, and his secretary. Not even my colleague Maverick knew about it. My dad, who had managed the company for a long time, was almost 70 years old. This was also still a secret. But he had decided to retire at the end of this fiscal year. In other words, from spring, I was going to be the CEO of this company. Just because I'm the CEO of this company, I wasn't going to change my attitude 100%. However, I was considering improving the internal environment, the relationship between employees, and of course, review personal matters. Just because I'd been in a higher position than Maverick, I had no intention of being arrogant to him. But as long as I was the CEO, I had to make things clear, to make the company a better place. I'd been thinking about it for a long time. A few days later, "Can I have a word with you, Andrew?" Maverick called me. I went to an empty conference room to talk with him. As I expected, he began to complain about how we treated his daughter and the results of the interview. As for the interview that day, I was responsible for the decision-making process. I informed Emilia that she had failed. Emilia wanted to surprise me. That's why. She had come to take the test without telling me. You knew that. She was my daughter. Why did you make the decision without consulting me? He started accusing me. I replied, I was the interviewer that day. In fact, you were the one who told me that. I was free to accept or reject anyone. Maverick responded, Well, yeah, that's true. But if my daughter was there, then it's a whole different story. Couldn't you at least read between the lines? You are still a regular employee because you can't understand people's feelings like that. He started to verbally abuse me. At that moment, I wanted to tell him exactly what he said to me. But I managed to keep my mouth shut. I don't care if she was your daughter or not. It's just that she wasn't someone that we'd like to hire. Her arrogant and bossy attitude would antagonize people in the company, and I think it would cause problems in the office. It would also interfere with the smooth operation of the company. That's what I thought. I calmly told him. Maverick couldn't hide his frustration. And then, Anyway, Emilia's rejection is cancelled. I'll handle it as a miscommunication. You're not to get involved in this matter anymore. He ordered me, but I couldn't accept it. You want to cancel the decision? That's impossible. She's been rejected. If she wanted to work for us, she should have taken the interview seriously. But she didn't. As the daughter of the department head, she did whatever she wanted, so she deserves this result. If we make an exception, what would other candidates think? And I will not allow you to rescind the rejection. I won't. I figured it was a perfect moment to tell him that. If I hadn't, I knew that his selfish way of doing things wouldn't change. And sure enough. What? What are you talking about? You won't allow it. You have neither the right nor the authority to do that. Just because we started working at the same time, you're talking arrogantly to me. But I'm the head of the Human Resources Department. You're a rank and file employee. You're in no position to talk back to me. He tried to one-up me. I told him clearly. I didn't want to draw a conclusion based on my position. But if you're saying you would use your position of the director to cancel your daughter's rejection, Let me tell you something. Emilia Jones has been rejected. This is a decision made by the CEO's authority. It cannot be reversed. I couldn't believe I just said that. I'm sure he didn't expect me to say such a thing. After a short pause, Maverick laughed and said, "The CEO's authority? Seriously, I don't know what you're talking about. Did you really talk to the CEO about this? If you're making it up just to beat me, you're no better than an elementary school kid. This is ridiculous." It was obvious that he didn't believe me. We've been with the company for 20 years since we started working together. He never knew the truth. There's no need to discuss it with the CEO. I'm going to be the CEO starting in April. The truth is that I've been transferred the CEO's authority. Huh? What the hell are you talking about? Maverick looked like he couldn't believe it. He asked me back. Just that day, I was scheduled to deliver a document regarding the change of CEO. I showed it to him, and I told him that I was the son of the former CEO. I told Maverick everything. To tell you the truth, I was like your daughter, but my dad was different. Just because I'm the CEO's son, he didn't just let me in. He wasn't like that. So I took the written exam and the interview. I prepared well for both of them. My dad is a very strict man. So when I passed the interview, I remember how happy he was. It was the first time I felt like I was being recognized. But even after I got the job, it wasn't easy. He used to tell me that even though I'm his son, there was no guarantee that I'll be the next CEO. I was never in a position before because I wanted to learn how to run a company as a CEO. But I never knew if my efforts were reaching my dad. I had no idea. However, I wanted to be someone who could support the company without the influence of my dad. I'd been working hard for the past 20 years. It's been tough at times. But now, I truly believe that all the experience until now will be the food for the future. So, Maverick, if you truly care about your daughter, I think you should think hard about what's right. That's what I think. Even though she gets into the company with your help, it'll not be an experience or an advantage. On the contrary, she would feel guilt and a sense of inferiority, and gradually, she might lose self-confidence. You should rethink what is the best interest of your daughter. Maybe Maverick was surprised, or maybe he understood what I told him. But he didn't argue with me anymore. And Emilia Jones was officially rejected. And because of this incident, Maverick himself was demoted from his position as head of Human Resources Department. I felt sorry for him, but if he was deciding whether to accept or reject based on his own personal feelings, I was worried about the future of the company. Then, the first spring has come since I became the CEO. Even though I've studied hard up to now, there were many things I didn't understand. Working as CEO, but I did the best I could. I have a solid feeling that I have seized the position of the CEO by my own hands. The future seems bright. I'll be looking forward to teaching this to other employees, that these experiences are very important. That's what I intend to do.